All right, so in section 2.3a, we're going to do slopes and intercepts. And the very first way that we're going to do slopes, and by the way, none of these problems that I'm about to do are from your homework, at least not the first couple, okay? And I'll tell you which ones might be from the homework assignment, okay? But the first ones we're not going to do from the homework because they're relatively simple, so I'll just let you do all four of them, okay? But first off, let's discuss the types of slopes, okay? So the types of slopes that you can see. Okay. So I'm going to draw four little graphs. Okay. Just X, Y axis, nothing major, real small. Okay. I'm not going to do anything big. Like they're going to all be like this. Okay. So let me just kind of line them up here. I'll do one more.
She's not late. Sorry, boss.
Oh, okay.
She was helping with the jerseys.
All right. No problem.
Thank you.
So the types of slopes that we have, there are four types of slopes. Okay, there's positive slopes, there's negative slopes. So let me write this down here. So positive slopes, negative slopes, zero slopes, and undefined slopes. Okay, so there's positive slopes, negative slopes, zero slopes, and undefined slopes. I'm going to draw you a picture of what these things look like. Um, a positive slope is a slope where the line goes upwards from left to right. Kind of looks like it's going uphill. So maybe something like this. This would be an example of a positive slope. Okay? And there's many others. As long as the line is kind of going upwards, it can be going upwards really sharply, like really fast, or it can go real slow. Okay? But as long as it's going upwards, then we call it a positive slope. A negative slope looks like it's going downhill, right? Again, it doesn't have to be going downhill very steeply. It can be kind of slowly going downhill or really steep, okay? But it has to look like it's going downhill. A zero slope, some people will call it a horizontal slope, but it's a slope that's equal to zero, which basically means that it's just straight across, okay? Flat, straight across. So, for example, the floor in every building presumably has a slope of zero. Okay? So, if you were to put a ball on the ground, on the floor, shall I say, of any room, it shouldn't roll by itself. Okay? Because the slope should be flat. That's the way they should have built it, unless on purpose they made it slope a little bit. But if it's sloping and it starts to roll by itself, that means that maybe over time, like earthquakes have moved the ground, so your house is maybe shifted a little bit, and maybe the floors aren't perfectly even anymore. But usually, when they build it initially, they're going for zero slope. Okay, whereas rooftops still have a positive and a negative slope in most cases, right? Because they go up and down usually for rain and stuff like that for drainage. So undefined slope is straight up and down. Okay, so it's a line that goes basically straight up and down. Okay, so there's four type of slopes that you're going to have to know. There's positive slopes, negative slopes, zero slopes, and undefined slopes. Okay, it's important that you know uh, what a positive slope looks like, because whenever you're given, let's say, a picture and they want you to figure out the slope, and let's say it was going uphill like a positive slope, but your answer came out negative, but you can tell that the line's going uphill and your answer is negative, you're going to know that something's wrong, because if your answer is negative, it should be going downhill, not uphill. Okay, so I'll show you that right now. But if you know your answer is 0 and the picture they gave you is going uphill or downhill, that's not good because 0 should be flat, straight across. Okay? If your answer is undefined, meaning you divided by 0, it should be going straight up and down. It shouldn't be sloping up or sloping down. It shouldn't be flat. Okay? Undefined should be straight up and down. All right? So those are the 4 types of slopes that you guys are looking for. Okay? And the reason why we call them positive slopes is because the answers come out positive. Negative slope because the answers come out negative. A 0 slope is because the answer is 0. And undefined slope is because we divided by 0, so it's undefined. Okay? So let me show you the first 4 types of problems you're going to be doing. Okay? So this is the instruction that they're going to give you on the first 4 problems. Find the slope of each line. I'm going to draw a graph here. I can kind of cheat because I have these things here. So I'm making a 4 by 4. I always tend to do 4 by 4 graphs, meaning 4 across in each direction. Up, down, left, right. And then I'm going to actually draw some dots because they're going to do that for you in the homework. They're going to put some dots on the graph. So let's say a dot here and a dot over here. I'm going to draw a line through that. Oh, I don't want to draw that line. I'll just do it by hand here. So we're just going to draw a line through that. So one of the points is at the point 3, comma 1, and the other point is at the point -1, -2. Okay? So 3, comma 1 is one of the points, and the other point is at -1, -2. Okay? So there's 2 ways you can do this. I'm going to show you the first way, the counting way, and then I'm going to show you the other way using a formula, and that's going to lead us into the next set of problems. Okay? But just out of curiosity, should my answer for my slope be a positive answer, a negative answer, a 0, or an undefined? It should be positive because it's going uphill, right? So I'm expecting a positive answer. Now for slope, we use the letter M. You guys should already know that. Here's the counting method that I'm telling you guys about. So you remember how slope is rise over run? You guys still remember that? Right, rise over run. So I'm going to go from the left side point, and I'm going to go up and over. Okay, up and over, rise and run. You see that little triangle that I created? Okay, what is the height of that triangle? So is it 1? It's 3, right? It's 1, 2, 3, right? 3. So I'm going to write 3. What is the base of it? Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4 across. Okay, remember your slope is rise over run, or it could be fall over run if it's going downwards. Okay, this one's going up. So I rose 3 units and I ran 4 units, and that's my answer. Okay, and that's all you have to do for that problem. Give them the slope. They're already going to give you guys the 2 points. That's already given to you. All you have to do is kind of figure out how much do you rise and run, or how much do you fall and run. Now remember, again, this is all review, so you guys should remember, whenever you fall, it's negative, right? If you go downwards, it's negative, and then run over. So we're going to do one where it's negative like this. So let's do number 2 here. going to draw another picture. So it's another 4x4 graph. I'm going to put 2 dots again. Here, and we'll put it there. And I'm just going to connect the dots to make a line. So these dots are at -3, -1, in case you're not sure. They're at -3, -1, so that's one dot. -3, -1. And the other dot is at 4, -3. 4, -3. So my answer for slope for this, should it be positive, -0, or undefined? This one should be negative, okay? If my answer comes out positive, then I better double check my work. Okay, if it comes out to 0, I better double check my work. If it's undefined, I better check my work, because this is going downhill, my slope should be negative. Now remember, my slope here is rise over run, but to go from the left point to the right point, do I have to go up? No, I got to go down, right? So I'm going to fall, but I'm still going to run. You always run right, okay? How many times do I have to fall to match the next one? 2 of them, okay, so I'm just kind of drawing these little dots here. So I have to go once, twice down, okay? And then how many times do I have to go over? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times over. So my slope is negative. So you're going to put that automatically because it's going downhill. Okay? And then 2/7 is one of you guys said. So -2/7. All right? So this is how you find slope of a line if you're given 2 points. Okay, and they give you a picture. You can do it this way, but some people are like, yeah, I'm not a fan of the counting thing. Can I do this a different way? Yes, you can. Now, I'm going to use this example to kind of help me carry on into the next method. So, one of my points that I had here was -3, -1. And the other point that I had was 4, -3. Okay, those are those 2 green points right there. Okay, so -3, -1, and 4, -3. Now, you guys should recall a formula for this, but I don't know if you do, but a lot of times people forget it. There's a slope formula. And the slope formula says that slope is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. In other words, you're going to take the y value from one point, subtract it from the y value of the second point, and then you're going to go back to the first point and get the x value from that point and subtract it from the x value from the other point. Now, the way I like to write it down just to keep things in order, I actually label them. So I'll go to the first point and put x1, y1 right above it. And then on the second point, I'll write x2, y2, just so I don't mess up. Because this formula is too easy to mess up. The only way I can mess it up is if I label my stuff wrong, if I cross my numbers around. So it's better that I label my points and make sure I do this right. So let's do the answer we just got, -2/7. Let's make sure that's exactly right. We're going to use those points. Okay, so m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. What's my y2 value? -3 minus, what's my y1? So notice how I'm going to put a parenthesis on the second point. just in case it was negative, which this one is, I want to make sure that I subtract the negative, okay? I want to make sure that I do that. And then x2 is 4 minus, and again, I'm going to put a parenthesis on purpose. I always like putting parentheses on the second point I plug in. What's my x1? Negative 3. All right, so let's see. Negative 3 minus negative 1. Let's just do this slowly here. Negative 3 plus 1. 4 minus negative 3, that's 4 plus 3. Well, that answer comes out to negative 2 over 7. And that's the exact same answer I got. So, I mean, do I need a picture in order to figure out slope? No, I don't need the line. But what do I need for sure? I need numbers, but what do we call these numbers? Those are called two sets. It's a set of, starts with a P, points, right? You need a set of points. And if you're given 2 points, you can always find slope. Okay? So the slope formula, as long as you're given 2 points, you can find slope. Okay? I'm not going to do any examples for you guys from your homework for this one right here. This is not an example, should I say. Let me rephrase that. This problem was not an example from your homework. I am going to do some homework problems for you right now. So here we go. We're going to find slope using the slope formula. Okay, so finding the slope using the slope formula. This is our third example here. We'll do this one. So here's the first one for us. And remember, I like to label the points just to make sure I don't mess up. Okay? You don't have to graph this or anything. Okay, I'm just going to write x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay? So at this point, I'm going to use my formula to write out my information. So I always like to rewrite my formula. I think I told you guys before, writing things down helps you memorize. So to rewrite the formula every time you're going to use it, it's good for you, okay? That way you don't have to go home and study it. You're just going to naturally remember it because you wrote it down so many times, okay? So here we go. Y sub 2. My y sub 2 is negative 14 minus y sub 1 is negative 14. Again, notice I put parentheses around the second point on purpose. I always do that, okay? You don't have to, but sometimes people mess up because they don't carry the negatives over. And then x sub 2, that's 20, minus x sub 1 is negative 1. All right. So m is equal to negative 14 plus 14 over 20 plus 1. What's the slope for this? It's 0 over 21, which is the same as 0. So if I were to draw this, what kind of line is it? It's a 0 slope. It's straight across, right? Straight across. 0 slope is straight across. So this would be my answer. Again, I'm not making you draw it. You can just calculate it. Okay, that's one of the homework problems. Let's do another one here. Here's number 4. Whoops. I gotta change the ink here. So let's go with this one. 12 comma negative 10 and negative 20 comma negative 18. This will be the last one from your homework. The other ones I'm going to just make up because you only have 2 more problems of a specific type. I don't want to take away all of them from you guys. So don't worry. Like I said, these are not hard problems to do. All right, so I'm going to label these. Again, you don't have to do this. I just do it as a way to make sure that I don't mess up. And even then, sometimes you mess up, but chances are you're going to keep things in order if you label them, okay? I have been asked before, why do I always label the left one, the x1, y1, and the right one, x2, y2? In my head, I think of it as the first point and the second point. So the ones refer to the first point I wrote, the twos refer to the second point I wrote. So to me, it makes sense to call it x1, y1 because that was first, and x2, y2 because that was second. I wrote that first and second. So in my head, it makes sense. If you want to switch it, go ahead. It doesn't matter. Okay? Just as long as you don't go like x1, y2 and x2, y1. If you do that, you're going to mess it up. Okay? So let's go ahead and write out my formula here. Y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So my slope is y2, which is negative 18, minus y1, which is negative 10, over x2, which is negative 20, minus x1, which is 12. Notice the 12, I didn't have to put a parenthesis around it, but just out of habit, I do it. Okay, I do that so I don't mess up my negatives in case there were negatives. Okay, but you don't have to put one around the 12 because it's not negative. It's not going to change anything. All right, so up on top we have negative 18 plus 10 over negative 20 minus 12. So negative 18 plus 10, that's a negative 8. Negative 20 minus 12, that's negative 32. If I simplify negative 8 over negative 32, I get 1/4. Positive 1/4. So is this line going up, down, flat, or straight up and down? Well, it's negative on top and it's negative on bottom. So a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Do you remember that? I'll write the little keys in case you forgot about that. So when it comes to multiplication, whoops, a positive times, well, let me just do it this way. A positive times a positive is a positive. A positive times a negative is a negative. A negative times a positive is a negative. And a negative times a negative is a positive. Funny enough, the same rules apply for division. I just got to change it to divide in the middle, but it's going to be the same thing. So dividing, we have a positive divided by a positive is a positive. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So same rules. Notice identical. The only difference is the sign change, right? Times and division. So yeah, they work the same. So this one would be going uphill. All right. Are we okay with that so far? It's just formulas, right? Plug in a formula and you should be okay. Again, the stuff on the right side, just as a reminder for you guys, right? You don't need to write it down if you don't want to, but it is something that they do expect you to know for sure. Okay? All right, last thing I got to go over with you guys. Like I said, the homework should be easy. It's just the explanation part of it. Sometimes we have to make sure that you guys are aware of these things. So the last set of problems that they're going to make you do is this. Find the x and y intercepts and sketch. So we're only going to do one of these because it doesn't require more than one. Like honestly, the work's going to be identical for every problem that you do that's like this. So we're going to find the x and y intercepts and sketch. And there's a nice little trick on how you do this. So this is number 5. Let me give you, let's say 3x minus 6y equals to 6. So that's what it's going to look like. They're going to give you an equation. They're going to say, okay, we want you to draw the picture for this. But before you do that, find the intercepts. And the reason why they want you to find the intercepts first is because if you can find 2 points, then geometrically we know that all it takes to draw a line is 2 points. So they want me to find 2 points. Okay? So here's how you find the x and y intercepts. At least this is the way I teach it to people. There's many ways. Some people like to cover one side with their thumb, their finger, and then the other side with their finger. But not everybody likes to do it that way. So here's the way I teach it to people. You're going to make a T-chart, okay, or a table, whatever you want to call it. And you're going to do diagonal zeros. Diagonal zeros. In other words, like this and like this. If you do them diagonally in that direction, okay, because I know most people would have said, like, why did you do them diagonally that way? I'm more used to going diagonal this way, like from top left to bottom right. That makes more sense. To me, it makes more sense too. But for my purposes, I'm going to go backwards, okay? I'm going to go this way with my diagonals. It's kind of weird. But the reason is because if I do it that way, then this is my x-intercept. And this will be my y-intercept, the bottom one, okay? So if I write it like that, naturally the top answer will be my x-intercept. The bottom answer will be my y-intercept. Okay, that's exactly what they want. So, how do we do it? Well, we're going to plug in some numbers, okay? I'm going to try to find my x-intercept first. For that, I'm going to let y equal to 0, so I'm going to get my equation, 3x minus 6 times 0 equals 6. Notice the y became a 0, because that's what I'm allowing it to be according to that chart. Y is going to be 0. Well, that leaves me with 3x equal to 6, which means that x has to be equal to what? To 2. X is 2. So I'm going to come over here. Let me use a different color. 2. So now I have a point, 2, 0. Okay? I have the point 2, 0. All right, let's do the y-intercept. For the y-intercept, I'm going to plug in 0 for x. So 3 times 0. Again, I'm just using the top equation. Minus 6y equals 6. Well, 3 times 0 goes away, so I just have negative 6y equal to 6. And if I divide both sides by negative 6, what do I get? I get y equal to negative 1. So I'm going to put negative 1 right there. Okay, so I'm done. I found my x-intercept. I found my y-intercept. I'm going to write it out nicely. Okay, I'm going to change the color here. 2, 0. And 0, negative 1, okay? My x-intercept is 2, 0. My y-intercept is 0, negative 1. And then they say draw it. All right, well, if I got to draw it, I need a graph, so let me do that really quick. So I'm just drawing my tick marks here. And I'm just going to draw the points 2, 0 and 0, negative 1. Now notice 2, 0 is on the x-axis. That's why it's called the x-intercept, because it's touching the x-axis. Okay? 0, negative 1 is on the y-axis. That's why it's called the y-intercept. Okay? And then just connect your dots, and you're done. And you have 2 problems like this on your homework. They're going to give you an equation. You're going to get your equation. You're going to plug in 0 for y first, solve. You're going to plug in 0 for x next, solve. Those will be your x and y intercept points. Put them on a graph, which they provide for you already, and then just connect the dots. And that's it. Okay? So the homework isn't terrible. I think you guys should be able to finish it in class. I'm gonna give you guys back your test right now, and then well, like I said, hopefully you guys can get your stuff done.